So the first phone that I ever talked about on this channel was the LG V20. It was the phone I decided to start making videos on, even though technically I had the Note 5 prior and the V10 as well to the prior to the God, V20. But the V20 was where I took making a YouTube channel seriously. And it's what I wanted to base my YouTube channel off of. So when I say the V20 is a one-of-a-kind phone in a lot of ways, and it's a first for LG in a lot of ways, and kind of a first for the industry in a lot of ways. First, 120-degree wide-angle camera, a secondary display, which isn't necessarily unique to LG. Hell, even HTC took it with the U11. I forget which U11. The U11 Plus, I think. No. The U12, I think it was. A wide-angle camera, which can double as a regular, which can switch between focal lengths. Samsung had it as a separate mode in their stuff, where it's like, yeah, we have a wide angle camera on here, but it crops to 5 megapixels. So you got to go to the separate ultra wide angle mode, and you'll get that. It's the last of the removable battery phones that have ever last flagship phone with a removable battery, which I feel cannot be understated. And it's a well-built phone. You know, nothing that I would say is terrible for today. It took me for this phone screen to crack. It took for it to hit a fucking processing line at work in the back room at Target for it to even budge. I've dropped this phone multiple times and there was no problems with it. It took for that to happen. And I didn't even notice it had a crack until I was like, what is that weird shit on the side of my display? And it still works fine right now. What I want to talk about this phone for in particular is the lack of versatility in phones now. Well, not lack of versatility. I still feel phones are pretty versatile, but I feel that we focus more on flash versus substance these days. Or, you know, the phone looking pretty over the phone being durable. The phone focusing on one thing and doing that one or a few things and doing those few things great. Not just, oh, it can do everything pretty good. Like, and I want to talk about what you can still use the V20 for today. And I'm going to talk about that right now. So, LG V20, 3 years later. The V50 is out. The V40 is still relevant. The V60 is definitely coming next year. What can you still do with an LG V20? One, if you don't really like always on displays and you prefer the secondary display, this is going to be right for you. Now, one thing I will definitely say is the phone noticeably has a smaller display, right? Because phones now have 6-point-something-inch displays. This was a 5.8-inch display. The V40 has an OLED display. This has an LCD display. So that's something that you will definitely see. But in terms of like resolution, it's still a 2880 by 1440 display. This is a 3120 by 1440p display. So it's slightly sharper. But that's pretty much it. Cameras definitely have been improved. I have scratches on my lens, so it's gonna be hard for me to be like, oh yeah, the oh shit. But definitely the cameras are still good. I would still use this as like a video recorder if I really needed to. You still get the ability to um, direct your mics on this, something you can't do on the V30 or V40. You still get this. You still are able to record the video and switch between your regular and wide angle lens in the video. You still have your hi-fi audio option if you really do want that. I use that a lot on here. On the second display, you're able to do this and switch between it like that. And obviously it's slower because it's a it's a it's an older phone. It has a Snapdragon 820 and 4 gigabytes of RAM, a 3200 milliamp hour battery. And probably the cracked screen also has something to do with it as well. But it's still good. It's still functional. I would still use it as a camera to this day, a video recorder to this day. I just gotta fix it up a little bit, right? Um, the headphone jack stomps flagships these days, unless it's another LG phone. Like you have a G8 or a V50 or a V40 or a V30 or a G7, you'll be fine. But this can definitely be used as a dedicated audio player, right? And you would be totally fine with it. My dad used his V20 to power his car sound system, and he and he puts power into his car system. So that's nothing to scoff at. This is the first LG phone with a quad DAC. It's where it started. It's where it originated from. And no other phone since then has even really touted a hi-fi DAC. Sony went out of that game. Sony decided, nah, we're done with that. We're just gonna do USB-C. Samsung didn't do anything about that. HTC doesn't have that. ZTE stopped caring about audio despite the fact that they were really the only contender compared to LG. It's like the moment LG came into the audio game, people started giving up. And I hope for another 2 generations, LG keeps the headphone jack. Because the writing is on the wall. Having USB-C audio is too profitable. Having dedicated peripherals that you use for USB-C or Lightning or something like that is too profitable to not do it. And I'll be shocked if LG is still like, you know what? Like if they at least keep it on one phone, like say the G9 or the G10 or something will no longer have a headphone jack, but the V series will. Fine. But LG pretty much built their phones off of, you want a smaller V series phone, go with the G series. That's what this year essentially was. Sure, they have differences like there's an in-display speaker on the G8 and it has a time of flight sensor on the front, so you have better face unlock and you have those gestures and hand ID and stuff like that, which I believe is pretty cool. But then they end up giving up because every reviewer under the sun wants to call them gimmicks, despite the fact that Samsung still touts an S Pen when most people probably don't even use S Pens, other than enthusiasts like me and like a lot of people that probably watch this video, right? Or what else does Samsung do? Heart rate sensors. What else do they also do? Oh, I don't know. Like stuff that really doesn't matter, but then you call it gimmick because you don't call it a gimmick because you don't use it. Like, phones these days are based off gimmicks. They've been based off gimmicks for a long time. Just because they're not useful to you does not make them a gimmick. I heard people honestly try and call the fucking quad DAC a gimmick with the V30. I was like, yeah, but you really can't hear the difference. Yeah, if you use your $20 skull candies, you won't really hear a difference. Like, and I'm not saying you have to go break the bank just to get good audio. Pay $40 to $50 on Amazon and get you like quad driver or 5 driver headphones. And you'll be set. But with the V series, LG pushed two things: audio and video. And a lot of people think that the V in V series stands for video. I don't see why not. That makes sense to me, but I don't see why there has to be a meaning behind the V. I think it's just a cool moniker. Like, you know how cars are like the V8, the V6 and stuff like that. The V30, the V40, the V50 sounds high class to me. I don't know what it is. And it's just crazy to me that people will take stuff like a Galaxy Note 10 and say this is coming from someone that has one, right? And will say this is premium because it looks pretty. But say this is cheap because it's not made out of glass and I can't heat the back of my phone up and mess my battery up with wireless charging. I'm sorry, 220. You get quick charge 2.0 on the LG V20. Fast enough charging for a 3200 milliamp hour battery. You, due to it having a removable battery, you can indeed replace the battery with a bigger one, get a battery case with like a Zero Lemon one with like maybe a 10,000 milliamp hour battery, which is kind of overkill, but it's cool if that's what you want. Still has some of the best mics in terms of recording in the game. You get full manual video and photo mode, something that Samsung they've had limited manual video modes, and they took out the manual photo modes in the S10 and S10 Plus just to put it back in the Note 10 series, and that's weird, but to each their own, I guess. Unrivaled headphone jack performance, good cameras for what you need them for. I would say that if you really want better cameras out of an LG phone, go with the V40, V50, G7, G8, where they've got their auto processing down a bit better, because LG phones back in like the V10, V20, G5 days had like very flat auto processing. And a lot of people don't like that. They like the oversaturated look of Samsung photos, and to each their own, I guess. But yeah. You can still game pretty decently on this. If you want to get more up-to-date software, you can root it and put custom ROMs on it. And I'm pretty sure the custom ROM community for the V20 is very good. It was a popular enough phone. V-series phones tend to be pretty popular for whatever reason, yet G-series phones aren't. Probably because these are like the diesel truck phones for LG, and for good reason. They're built well. It's well made, and that was something that a lot of people had criticism about the G5 for good reasons. But LG tried something ambitious and failed at it. And like in my video, how LG failed the V20, LG squandered the marketing for this phone. And they pretty much have been doing that ever since. The G2 and G3 were probably the two most marketed LG phones. And the G2, it was successful. And that's what's crazy to me, man. They just don't care anymore. They just make phones because some people like them. And that's what's crazy to me. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to make another video on the LG V20 because the V20 is something special to me. And it's something special to a lot of people. I know people that still use it. Hell, I've seen people still use the V10. So LG struck a chord with the V series, and I don't understand why they don't leverage that. They just sit here and just put phones out. They basically just fart phones out. And like, yeah, if you want it, it's here. They even, like with the V30, I think they got a Game of Thrones cinematographer to talk about how he used the phone during his, filming of Game of Thrones and shit, right? And while I don't necessarily believe it, here we go with it being dark. And while I don't necessarily believe it, because, every company does that, so it's not necessarily something that I would say is new or unique. It did genuinely sound like he knew what he was talking about, and that the LG V30 was able to do very good things. But we're talking about the V20. No, I'm sorry about that. The V20, I think it was the last LG phone to ship with LG Friends. The mods and the accessory app they had that they launched with the G. No, I believe the G6 had it too. I'm pretty sure you can just download it off the Play Store if you really want it, but nothing is really badged with that anymore, so I guess it doesn't matter. But what I would like to see from LG this next year, and I feel they really did well with the V50, but in terms of what I feel they need to do, because I don't feel it's too late to win people back. I really don't. People were disappointed with the Note 10, Note 10 Plus. Despite the fact that there are Note fans out there that genuinely like the phone and don't care that the regular Note 10 doesn't have the Note 10s don't have headphone jacks, so the regular Note 10 doesn't have a micro SD card slot. A lot of people do, and LG brought that back. They didn't necessarily bring the removable battery back, but they brought SD card support back. Everybody was taking it out. HTC took it out. Samsung took it out. LG took it out didn't have it with the G2, except for like a version of the G2 in Korea, which has a micro SD card. I've seen it on eBay. It's kind of weird. It's kind of cool. And I kind of actually want to get it just to have it as like a mantelpiece, because I do love the G2. But people take the credit that, LG should have and then put it on Samsung, put it on Google, put it on insert manufacturer or company here. Like with with the iPhone 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max, what did they say? This is pro grade photography and video creation on here. You mean what the V10, V20, V30, V40, V50 have been doing for 5 generations now? What the G series has been doing since the G4 with the manual mode on there? for photos anyway. Like, it's crazy to me that people will eat that up. But it's whatever. Let me know what you guys think of the V20 in the comment section below. I just wanted to make a video on this, kind of a postmortem, and talk about how I still think this phone has stuff for it that you can use it for. Still use it and you can still use it as a music player. Still use it as a camera. You can still use it as a video recorder, audio recorder. I think this was the first LG phone that had that HD recording app. Let me check. Yep, HD audio recorder. Oh, of course. Yep, literally. The HD audio recorder right here. It was the first phone to ship with that. And it just the first LG phone to ship with that. And that's something that you can record podcasts with. You can monitor your own. You do stuff like plug in headphones and monitor your own voice audio if you need to. Record a separate track for, like, say, if you record music and stuff like that. You can do that on here. There's a lot of stuff on here that are for creators that nobody talks about because it's LG and it's not Samsung or Apple. And that's just something that's crazy to me. Or it doesn't have super HDR processing like a Pixel or an iPhone. And that's just crazy to me, man. I don't know why I took the phone out of frame. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below what you guys feel about this phone. The V20, like I said, is very special to me. It's probably the only series that I'll consistently keep up with. It took me a while to get a V40, and despite the fact that I had to get it used, I still appreciate getting it. And despite the fact that I probably won't ever be able to update it to Android 10, I still appreciate being able to get it. I'll get a V50 eventually, and and I'll talk about that, obviously, because the V series started this channel. And it would be wrong for me to be like, yeah, I'm no longer covering an LG alone, yet an LG V series phone. Until they stop making them, which I don't really feel they'll do. We'll see. This is part of the thing, guys, watching this support. Hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday. I've said that like 4 times a day. Have a good one, you guys.